A lot of what we had to make sure that we did with the art style was to, in essence, make it still feel like the post-nuclear world that it was. And that is the kind of the weird 50s, but 100 years after the 50s, if the 50s just stayed the 50s, and then bringing in this idea of Vegas.
Josh had one of the first team meetings, and he talked about Vegas as being one of his ideas, but more importantly, that it'd be the Rat Pack era. And when he said that, then I was just joyous, because it's just great aesthetics at that time.
When we started the game, there were a few things aesthetically that we knew we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that the architectural style of homes, and as well as the casinos, either reflected 50s style from the Vegas era, or it reflected an even earlier time, more like the settlers of the West.
But it's all about Vegas. And so we want to make sure that we have this feeling of sort of this neon, and again, it feels like you're going in there and you're playing around with the mobsters, you're playing around with the Rat Pack.
So much of Fallout is bleak. Everything's been blown up in Fallout for the most part, but the Las Vegas Strip is unique in that no nuclear weapons hit it. So when you go in, you're immediately struck that this is really one of the last places that still feels like old civilization.
Our team, I think, got up to, including animators and myself, we're about 22. We have a lot of great people here, character artists, we have concept artists, world builders, prop artists, and they all have different backgrounds. We have folks like Brian Menzie, who's got a long history with the franchise, but then we have folks like myself who are new. So I think the combination of the different experiences really brought the quality bar up. It takes a lot of work and a lot of people. Usually what we try to start off with is just a general idea of what are the main things we're looking to see in different parts of the world. There's tons of images out there, so a lot of it was just looking at the Strip in the early 50s and early 60s, just to see what was different about it then.
Joe Sanabria had a pretty good lock on the style of Vegas itself and the casinos. I wanted to sort of immerse myself more in especially the desert sort of style. I took a motorcycle trip through the desert, basically going all around the outskirts of Vegas. Traveling by motorcycle, you get a lot more opportunity to sort of see the area around you. This is just a different feeling from driving in a car, I think. And I just went all around there and I took pictures. I sort of paid attention to the type of flora that was really distinctive. Obviously, you have Joshua trees and then certain types of cacti or wildflowers and things like that. It was basically just a nice inspiration for, you know, just the kind of feeling of being out there. I try to take a lot of opportunities to see what Vegas looked like from different positions. You know, what does it look like when you're coming up from I-15, or what does it look like when you're way up in the mountains west of the valley? It was a nice way to see the environment and get a feel for what it was like. We wanted to make sure that this environment felt like a Fallout setting, but we also wanted to make sure that it was a distinct shift from the Capital Wasteland. You know, this is very, very far away from the DC area, and it's such an important part of the game, that feeling of exploration and looking around. We wanted to make sure that there was a distinct shift.
One of the biggest differences is the lighting in the Southwest. Artists come from all over the world to try and paint and photograph in this kind of light that we have down here. So that's the biggest difference right off the bat.
It doesn't need to be sort of the more kind of blues and grays of DC. This is more the warm colors of the Southwest. You kind of blend all those things together within a blue sky instead of a gray sky, and you get a very different sense of the world.
The scope of this game is massive. You have basically a city in the middle of this area, and then the territory stretches all around the city and does stretch out all the way to Boulder City and to the dam.
When doing Vegas, we didn't want to neglect any of the surrounding areas around Vegas. We wanted to make sure that we had Fremont Street realized, and we have a location called Freeside in the game before they even hit Vegas. And I think once they get a taste of that, they're going to be suitably intrigued to go, okay, well, if that's Freeside, hell, I wonder what Vegas is going to be like.
The Vegas that we were representing was really classic Vegas. This is something that dovetails nicely with the general aesthetic of the Fallout series as a whole.
Everything to do with the Strip is a big artistic playground. One of the strengths we saw about being able to use Vegas as a location is because all those casinos have their own individual themes. It's like a big amusement park the size of a city. And not only do designers have a lot of fun doing quests for those areas, but artists have a fantastic time going, you know what? We can just play around with this location because that's what Vegas is all about.
I was working on the designs for the individual buildings, the keystone ones, the ones that the families or factions are associated with. So Lucky 38 was the first one because it's the most prominent one. From there, I went to the Ultralux and then Tops.
Each of those casinos had its own style that we defined for it. Its own color palette, its own particular slice of Googie style or Art Deco in some cases.
I think we really knew that we kind of hit the look and the feeling of Vegas when we started putting the signs in. So, and I don't know why that was one of the key things, because you can have a big hotel, but it kind of doesn't feel like Vegas unless you have those giant signs.
When you go into these places, they still look like things that have been rebuilt. This is still a world where people have to deal with certain material realities, and they're in the middle of the desert, pretty far away from anything else. So there's a lot of stuff that looks like it has been repaired, been remade, but it's not brand new. But then also you can see off to the sides in certain patches of the Strip, you'll see just whole casinos that are just hulking ruins that are sort of blocked off. You know, that's to show again, like, you know, this place has been screwed up for about 200 years.
We also wanted to make sure there's a certain energy about the Strip too. So when you get past the Great Wall that surrounds Vegas and you actually get inside the city, you feel that same sort of energy that you feel from Las Vegas in real life.
It's almost not just the art, it's sort of really focusing on sort of that feeling and making sure that it feels like a 24-hour city like it does in real life.
When I take pictures or give reference and then say, I kind of want to like it like this, I'm kind of going to want to like this, it's very nice to see the artist come back with something that's even better than what I had imagined in the first place. I think people are really going to dig how different it is from the Capital Wasteland and how we sort of captured the feeling of the Mojave.